Okay, here we are. Hi, Jen.
Hi,
How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm happy to be here with you.
Yes,
So,
me too. Thank you.
I want to just take a moment to welcome everyone. Hi, Sarah Jane. Let's see. Um, Sorry, just fixing some of the settings. And welcome everyone for joining us this Friday, January 28th, 2022, for Studio B's bi-weekly Meet Your Center interview series. I'm excited to welcome today Jennifer Nicastro from Signallamp Health. And I'm just going to, sorry, Jen made me nervous and now I'm stumbling over my introduction. So I hope that puts all of us at ease now. So let me start over. Welcome to our webinar series, Meet Your Center, where we explore topics that provoke expansion of innate human capacities, both personally and professionally. I'm really honored to have Jen Nicastro here and welcome her to the program today. Jen serves as Chief Nursing Officer at Signallamp Health. She brings a diverse nursing background to her team, spanning from both inpatient and outpatient care, home health utilization review, and case management. Her prior leadership experience includes applying an analytic framework to the nursing process to enhance the delivery of care in outpatient settings. Jen is well-versed and experienced in electronic medical records implementation, a champion in bringing well-being support to the employees at Signallamp Health, and Jen has a BSN from the University of Scranton. She resides here in Pennsylvania with her husband and 2 children. Welcome, Jen.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you very much.
It's right, there's always so many Jens in the room, right?
Always.
I grew up as Jenny C because there was a Jenny D, there were various other Jennies in our grade, so we all had to use like our last initial.
Yes.
Does that resonate with you?
Yes, I was Jenny D.
Yeah. So I feel like we have some sort of like connection, all the Jennies from the 70s in the world, 70s and 80s. Jen, I met you several months ago last summer, and I was excited to learn more about Signallamp Health and the work that you're doing in the world. So I'd like to hear more about Signallamp Health, and if you could just kind of talk to the origin story a bit and what brought you into your leadership role at Signallamp Health, and what exactly you do for the team.
Sure. So we started this company in December of 2015, and essentially simple, we manage patients telephonically for healthcare organizations throughout the United States. So I started with Andy Goldberg and Drew Carney in 2015. I literally walked in the door. I say this story all the time. And I said, what do we do? And they said, don't know, go down the room and figure it out. So it took probably about 2.5 years to kind of figure it out. And then since there, we just kind of grew as a company. Real quick, we started with 360 patients and we bill over 20,000 plus a month now. So just expand like crazy. We have nurses throughout the United States, and we have clients throughout the United States. So it's pretty amazing. How I got into my role, being the first full-time nurse, I kind of just really worked with Andy and Drew to build the program, understand it, used my previous experience, my nursing knowledge, my EMR experience, and helped to build it and just kind of understood it from day one. So with that, I just kind of kept going and going and am in the chair I am today. My responsibilities are I do manage all of our nurses. I work with the clients very closely. We do, I introduce the program to them, kind of get them up and running and started. It's funny because I tell them how it should be done. and they want to do it this way. And then I'm usually right at the end. But anyway, just because we know we've created a model that works. So just kind of managing a patient or managing nurses. I still have a couple patients that I touch base with, or they get me through the day, especially when I'm feeling and stressed. They help me kind of boost back up. And just making sure that the nurses stay positive, nurses stay happy, and our other team players as well that are involved. So kind of manage the whole shebang.
Yeah. And you're being very humble, I have to say. So Jen, kind of my impression of you in your role at Signallamp is you do take care of everyone, right?
Yeah,
And I think that's a natural capacity for a nurse, that caregiving role.
absolutely.
Did you always know that you wanted to be a nurse, like since you were a child?
So a story is I wanted to be a physical therapist because I'm very athletic. I always played sports. You know, I took a coaching class in college. It was a minor that was offered. So I have a certificate in coaching. I always liked the sports aspect. So I went to a clinic out in Indianapolis, Indiana, when I was visiting my father, and I had to do my senior project in high school. I had to do a observation, and I went to a local sprint clinic, and I was like, oh my God, this is so boring. Sorry, PTs, just not for me. It's like move your leg. I know there's more involved now going through and working with physical therapists, but at only 17 and 18 years old, a senior in high school, I was like, I don't know if I could do this. It wasn't exciting for me. So that evening, my stepmom is a nurse. She took me across the street to her very busy hospital in Indianapolis. And I visited where she worked in the ICU. I visited the ER, and I said, I want to be a nurse. This is what I want to do. So since then, I kind of got into, well, I started college at the University of Scranton, obviously. And I worked as a nurse's aide right out of the gate. As soon as I started college, I truly believe that's the only way a nurse is going to, not the only way, but nurses truly learn the dirty part of nursing, I guess you want to say. Like, you got to get in, you got to get them on a bedpan, you got to, wipe their bottoms, you got to get in there and get dirty. And sometimes nurses don't experience that. And then they miss that hand-holding experience. They miss that nurturing experience, and they go right into like passing meds and like paperwork. But for me, that nurse's aid part, it made me such a better nurse, got me prepared for the harder part of college and then becoming an RN. So
I love that. Yeah, I resonate that. We've talked about this before. My mom is a nurse.
yes,
She's she's still working as a nurse. She's going to be 72 next week.
amazing.
And she's not working in a busy hospital environment anymore. She's working in an outpatient clinic, but that was her path. She started as an LPN, and then she earned her RN, and then she worked in ICUs and specialty departments all these years. And what she always says to me is she always reflects back on how dramatically nursing has changed.
Absolutely.
And it's really interesting to me. I'd like kind of like to start here, because you are a technology company at the end of the day, Signallamp Health, and you are in a role now where you are supporting nurses in their role in a dramatically different way, very cutting edge. And so I'm curious to see how, like, the good, the bad, and the ugly of that. Like, how do you meet that in a way that lands positively in your role at Signallamp?
Sure. So the technology, well, being a tech company and nursing, who would have thought 30 years ago, 20 years ago, it would be what nursing is today? Telehealth is so popular now, teleappointments. I mean, you have the pandemic, which really the pandemic has changed our company, I feel, completely.
Mhm.
Patients talking to a nurse on the phone in 2019 was like weird to patients. Why do all of a sudden do I have a nurse now? Because remember, this started in 2015 at the end of the year, and we really pushed hard in the beginning of 2016. So once the pandemic hit, telehealth visits were there, but they were kind of down. Nobody really used them. And now that the pandemic hit, now everyone is using them. So then now you have this technology, and now you're able to connect to more patients. You're able to, the providers will do virtual face-to-face and do an assessment. The nurses, we check on them every single month, make sure they're doing okay. The technology allows them to give us a call directly, instead of their provider, gives them that security to call the nurse. With the technology that we have built as well, we have that care plan and assessment tool, which we were able to assess and take care of that patient and then put it in the provider's chart so they can see what's going on. So we wouldn't be here essentially without the technology, which is really mind-blowing, because nursing, your Florence Nightingale days, there was nothing. And now we have all this technology and everything. It's mind-blowing.
It is. And I think it really, I think about my grandmother, and she's no longer living, but the last 5 years of her life, this type of support and care could have been really enhanced.
Yes, I agree.
Her needs at that time, because what I experienced, she suffered from dementia and Alzheimer's dementia. And so, she would be at her doctor's appointment quite frequently, but then she would forget, right? So she needed a lot of extra support, more than what she could receive in person. And every time I sit with you and Drew and Andy, who, by the way, are just really incredible and inspiring leaders, I always reflect on, my mom and my grandmother, and how supportive this model is. Number one, most primarily for patients, especially elderly patients, but also to nurses. Like my mom growing up, she worked, insane shifts. Like she worked night shift. She did this wild schedule down in Allentown where she was gone for 24 hours at a time, twice a week. And quite frankly, she was a single mom. So it was really hard on us as kids, and I think, wow, it would have been really interesting for her to have a supportive model like this, where she could have worked from home and had more flexibility. So obviously there's a lot of positives to this model. And so I'm curious to hear from you, with the population of nurses that you're supporting, how the model at Signallamp is supportive to the nurses, and then how it might be challenging, to a group of clinicians who probably have never done anything like this before.
Absolutely. So the supporting part of this position and our nurses, or how we're able to support nurses, is they're in their home. They're in their home environment. They're working 8 to 4:30, which is Eastern time, which is a very hard shift, Monday through Friday, to find in nursing. As you mentioned, your mom worked crazy shifts. I've worked crazy shifts, 16 hours driving home on the turnpike at 3 a.m. I don't know how I did it. It's crazy, but that's, what nursing was, or, so this job gives the nurse the flexibility, gives them if they have to run to an appointment, they can go and they can take an hour or two off to run to an appointment. A lot of other places, we would have to maybe take a half day, or we would have to take the full day. So we have a lot of flexibility. We give the parents who are working for us the ability to see school events and not have to take a full day off. Maybe if their kid is sick, they don't have to end work for the day. They can run, get the child from school, bring the child home, take care of them, and then they can go back to work. So they can still manage their life, manage other things besides work at home, which is still their work office. Now, funny, the challenge is working from home.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And I just went through this with the nurse. when I come into my office, I could leave my personal issues at the door. I'm good. I come in here, I see my team and I see my nurses. That's what kind of gets me going. When you're in your home environment, you can't leave anything at the door. Your distractions, your issues are surrounded by you the entire time.
Mhm.
So that is a barrier, that is a challenge for some nurses. That's where we utilize your platform for them to, take that pause, to take that 5-minute breathing, to do that stretching, to give them that peace of mind. So if you can't leave it at the door, come in, do your Studio B, meditation, whatever you choose, and leave it there. And then you can go on with your day. So that is a barrier working at home. If you can't manage your distractions, that's going to be hard for some nurses. It takes time for nurses to understand that. Some nurses, may want to do everything, but you can't. We're still human. We're still working. We're still managing patients. So leave the issues at the door, discontinue the distractions, and working from home is amazing for nurses. They actually are coming to us more and more now. And one of the reasons I ask, why you're looking for a change, they're tired, they're burnt out, the pandemic, some have the marks on the nose, they're just exhausted. And these aren't nurses that are nurses for 20 years, but these are nurses that are 10 years younger than me. And they're like, I'm just tired. I want to be able to take care of patients. I am not able to do that right now. So I'm happy that we're able to give them the opportunity to fall in love with nursing again, to have that ability to take care of the patients. I tell nurses too, this is the kind of job that allows you to be that nurse that why you wanted to become a nurse, that hand-holding job. It's not physical, it's over the phone. So it gives you that opportunity to build relationships, get to know your patients, and patients engaging in you. It gives you that sense of niceness, loveliness per se. You're building a relationship, joining friends. Now nurses are like, oh, I don't like that. I don't want to do that. I like the excitement. I love that. That's fine. Nursing, there's so many different types of jobs with nursing, so many different things you can do, which makes nursing one of the best fields, I feel like, to work in, because you could do whatever you want.
Right. There's so many opportunities and so many different routes to kind of advance yourself and your
Exactly.
understanding. And I almost went into nursing myself. Like I applied to the RN program before I ended up shifting into a marketing focus in college, and I got accepted, and I had everything ready to go. And then at the last minute, it was like a couple weeks before I was supposed to start, I was like, you know what? I think this isn't the route I'm going to take. But that was one of the things for me that was really interesting. Like there were so many development opportunities. And yet when I research nursing today, and just in preparing for our talk today, and knowing this, of course, from the media and news cycle and all of these things, there's such a shortage of nurses.
Always has been.
It's crazy. Right. It's incredible. Like it is seriously incredible. And then you named it, like many nurses in traditional hospital systems, they've just been running on empty for 2 years or longer, of course.
Right, of course.
But especially the last 2 years has been significantly intense for front end workers. So not just nurses, of course, clinicians in general, right? And so I guess my question is, because Signallamp we've been working with you for over 7 months, I think. It's been pretty incredible. As a matter of fact, I want to read a quote, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
This was from one of your nurses on your team, and it was a note that was sent to one of our Studio B facilitators right before the holidays. And her name's Regina. And the note says, "Hi, Regina. Thank you for being flexible with our schedule. The team has enjoyed your exercises, and it has been a pleasure to be able to unwind for a few minutes in the morning. Our profession can be very taxing mentally, so we appreciate the opportunity for any mental clarity. The team finds your tone of voice to be very calming, and it is. We are often speaking with people who are in poor health physically and mentally. So our patients often do not think about our feelings when speaking with us. It is a nice change of pace from what we deal with daily. I personally enjoy the shaking exercises. I have found that exercise helps to stimulate my brain and energize me for anything that may come my way throughout the day. We've also found that setting aside that time just for us and our mental well-being is important, not only on Tuesdays, but every day. As nurses, we are always putting everyone before ourselves.
Mhm.
I believe that this is a quality instilled in every nurse from an early age. Again, we collectively appreciate your dedication to mental well-being and the time you set aside for our team. So that was very sweet.
Lovely.
This note was, just so you know, it was passed like widely around like Studio B. All of
Aw.
the core team like cried reading
Aw.
it. All of our teachers and facilitators appreciated it. Because I think sometimes I think of nursing, nurses are caregivers,
Mhm.
and in our field of well-being, teachers and facilitators are also extending care.
Absolutely.
And so quite often, like the question becomes, who takes care of the caregiver, right? And I just want to name how important and honored, it's such an honor to be a part of the process at your company and supporting front end workers. And just the focus and articulation and intention behind the work that we're doing is directly from you and Drew and Andy. Like, it was clear from day one that, I walked in and we never talked about, we weren't talking about productivity. We were
Right.
talking about like, hey, how do we support these people?
Right.
And so I'd like to talk about that. Like, where do you think that intention, where did that come from? And how or when did you know that, gosh, we need to do something? Like,
Sure. So I am a huge lover for positivity. I don't like negativity. It can bring so much down. And I was experiencing a lot of negativity, and I was struggling internally myself. Um, and just I noticed some nurses were having negativity, and I knew that we needed a tool or something to come in and help us lift us up again, give us that ability to step away, give us that ability to just focus on ourselves or just to pause. Um, a lot of times nurses forget to go away from the computer. I'm totally guilty. I eat my breakfast here, my lunch here, my snacks here. This is my area. I rarely leave this unless I have to use the bathroom, which sometimes I forget to even do that. So we knew we needed something to help us get through this. And then when you came in and we saw the platform, I've told you 1,000 times, I was completely drawn to your 5, 10 minute, 15-minute breaks, your meditation classes, deep breathing exercises, your chair yoga, like all of those little breaks, because I knew that's exactly what my nurses needed. They needed the ability to have something at the tip of their fingers, and just a click, they can have that break. They could shut everything else down and they can have that break, shut their eyes, listen, and just be themselves. Take that moment to pause. And I knew when we saw your platform that this is exactly what we needed.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course, yes.
Yeah. It's like a dream come true, kind of, for me, like, because of course, and this just being in an early stage company, and you guys aren't really early stage anymore, right?
Feels like we are sometimes. I can't believe it.
Right. You've had incredible success and growth, and it's amazing and inspiring. But you've been through the process of being early stage, and I think seeing, there's so much testing, of course, in product development and beta testing, and you're imagining what you think might work, but when you actually see the product come to fruition and you receive letters like that, it's really meaningful. And it just like, what is the word I'm looking for? Like you're just, the fire. Anyway, it's just adding oxygen, to us right now. Because it's not easy being early stage and launching a tech product and then selling it and competing against organizations that have a bigger, much dramatically bigger budget, right? So it's just so exciting to get that feedback. When you get feedback from, like, what is the feedback you're getting from your team? And
sure, they love it. So as you know, we do every team meeting, we start with an exercise, 15-minute exercise by one of your leaders, your teachers. And then I do know that some of our teams, they will do their own exercises, maybe on Friday morning, because it's Friday. They want to start off not fresh, but just kind of end the week with a positive note. I know some nurses will use it. Maybe they had a really negative call, meaning maybe someone was going through something emotionally. Maybe depression was exacerbated, and that nurse took it, because as nurses, we take all their pain in. And they took one of your classes to help kind of get out of that sadness, that negativity, get back into the positive, take that moment, take that pause. But the nurses, they love it. They use it. I told you this morning or before that there was a nurse, I told her, use it. She was going through something personal. She doesn't like to sit. I said, stand and, put on a class, meditation, deep breathing, whatever you want to do. There's so many options. Pick one. It will help you get through this. And they do, and they really, truly appreciate it. It's an extra support for them without being a human. It's, it's classes, and yes, the teachers are doing them, but it's not like we are real time. So they're there and they feel just as supported as if it was someone doing it real time, face to face.
Yeah. I think that's it's one of our product differentiators, that live connection that we're able to make, our teachers are able to make with the end users, with the students and users. And I do think it's so important, because sometimes meditation, especially mindfulness meditation, there could be a lot of like mystery wrapped around it, and some fear maybe.
Sure.
And so people are somewhat cautious at times about trying something new. And, and once they meet the teachers and they realize, oh, wow, these practices are actually very simple and very practical. And, they're taught secularly, and there's a ton of science behind it. And they actually then have an experience where they're noticing a shift that makes them feel just a little more clear.
Yes,
right.
I love it. And I have to say, so when we first started, there were some smiles, some chuckles from nurses, like, oh, this is a joke. What is Jen making me do here? It's what
right.
is this? Because also, like, as nurses, we're tough. Like, we're fine. We don't need any of this. We are rock stars. We're going to get through this. I don't need to meditate. And here we are 7 months later, there's no more smiles. Their eyes are shut, and they're doing the exercise and they're taking it in. So they just had to meet the teachers. They had to see what it's like, doing it with their team leaders in a smaller group too also helps, because they're more engaged with the smaller groups. So it's, I always think of, and I see the nurses that were chuckling, and I was like, and now there's none of that, and they utilize it.
Yeah. Yeah. It does take time though,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
And
Everything takes time.
everything. Yeah. And so it's interesting because we do a lot of trials with the product when we're getting new companies on board.
Mhm.
And I think that's important, and we are absolutely willing to do that. But I think sometimes it takes a little longer, right? Like, so what do you think? Was there something that helped from a leadership perspective? If you had to give another company advice on how to address well-being, especially mental and emotional well-being, what advice would you give to somebody in HR leadership who is looking at tools? And it doesn't matter if it's our tool or, there's
Sure,
lots of tools
sure.
out there, but I think that there's a common denominator on what some companies that are really successful with well-being strategies are doing,
Mhm.
and then you have other companies that can't seem to get those strategies off the ground. What do you think it was for you that made this program successful outside of how awesome our product is and teachers are?
Sure. Well, I mean, there are so many different studies that say that if you do like a little bit of meditation, 10 minutes a day, let's say, your stress, your burnout is so significantly decreased.
Mhm.
So I think us, what made us successful with it is just doing it ourselves, really learning it and understanding it. I know Drew, our CEO, has done your classes before. So, he's an advocate for it. I was a little weary in the beginning. I was like, is this really going to help me? Because I'm one of those tough nurses. But it does. It gives me that I feel better after I do something. I was actually thinking about my previous employer this morning, knowing that we were going to have this podcast. And I was like, they would really benefit from this.
Mm.
And not just saying that because you're here in front of me, but it has benefited us so much. I just feel like there's more positivity. The nurses are um, doing better in their work. Um, Not that they're providing better care, but they are in a way. They're feeling more positive. So when you're positive, you present and a more caring way. Because if you're negative, you're going to be like quick to move on to the next per se.
Mhm.
So successful is really just doing it yourself, seeing how it benefits you, and then you have to show it to your team. Your team is going to look up to you as a supervisor, and if I feel positive and know that it's working and helping, they need to do it, and it's the best way. It's just give it a shot, do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you answered that way, because I really do think that that's the common denominator.
Hmm.
I think from the companies that we work with, and it's over 30 companies now that we've been able to onboard, and the companies that are most successful and have highest participation and engagement are companies where leadership is actively using the
Yes.
tool and showing up with their teams, talking about, the tool, reminding them that it's, I think that my perception, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but my perception is that especially nurses might have a hard time like pulling away to do something like this because they might think it's not allowed, or right.
Well, working from home, because you don't have you're not with that, you don't have someone in the company right there next to you.
Right.
So yes, nurses are afraid sometimes to back up and take care of themselves for those couple minutes. um, we encourage it. We say it all the time. I actually call, I tell the nurses, even when the first day I meet with them, and sometimes I bring it up on the interview, especially if they talk about how stressed and burnt out they already feel.
Mhm.
I'll bring up, well, we do offer this benefit on day one. And I talk about the platform and how beneficial it is. And they are like, whoa, this is great, you know? And even the nurses right from the get-go, because it truly is, it helps. It helps get through the day. But I want them to know that it's okay to do that too. Like I'm telling you about this before you even signed a commitment letter that, hey, this is a benefit I want you to do. This will help you. If you don't do this, you will be burnt out and stressed. I told a nurse today I had an interview, and she doesn't have much technology experience. And I said, you will have struggles because we're very, very computer intense. But if you take one day at a time, you know, I told them about Studio B. If you use this platform when you're feeling, go in there, take a pause, take a moment, use the resources that we provide you, and take one day at a time, and don't look down the road or don't look behind. Just give yourself a positive challenge every day. You will work out great. If you start to feel negative and don't use the resources, you're going to quit in 2 days, because it's just how it is. I kind of feel like it might be just human nature too. If you're negative and not using resources that are provided to you, sometimes you throw in the towel.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that because you've been very clear about, you know, staying positive, and, you know, and that negative kind of energy. And yet in the mindfulness practices, what we're trying to eventually, I think the challenge is we want our students to kind of know that they could hold both, right? And stay non-reactive, right? So the negative things are going to keep coming, and that's just true. And so it does develop a positive mindset, but I think really what it develops is a capacity to be with all the stressors that
it helps. You're gonna always have it. It helps you get through it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, the stress doesn't go away, right?
No.
So like the stress doesn't go away, but we could transform the way that we are meeting stress, right? So instead of like noticing that we're incredibly reactive and negative, what we end up finding is a little more equanimity, where, yeah, the stressors are still here, but I know that they're going to come and go, and I could kind of remain steady. And
Right.
and I think that does result in kind of a more positive, open.
Absolutely. Well, it's the reaction. You're not, you know, when like you said, the stressors are coming, but this helps kind of keep it at a bay, because, you know, I'm a reactor, I'm bad at it. I'm always reacting. But it does it. If I feel myself reacting, I do a class or an exercise, and then I'm still upset, but I'm not reacting, and I just keep going.
Right. It kind of takes the charge out of it.
Yes.
And what I find, at least, and as you know, I've been doing these practices for a long time, right? And I definitely still get reactive sometimes, don't get me wrong. Like I often talk about this story where I was at Wegmans like last year, and, you know, it's been stressful at Wegmans. Let's all admit it. It's
never not been stressful.
Well, exactly, but it's worse now, right? Because people are just edgy, especially in 2020, right? Yeah. And even though 2021 and 2020 are kind of mashed together into 2020, right? But I remember, like, you know, ending up in a line with like the slowest checkout person, and, you know, I was in a rush. I don't know all the dynamics of what was happening anymore, but I got very reactive, and just like, and I paused because I caught myself, of course, but too late. I had already like said whatever it is that I said. And I was like, oh, like, here it is. This is, you know, what I try to work with, right? And not avoid. And yet it still happens. So like it does. So even if you've got a consistent practice for 20 years, you're going to still have moments where you're just a human being. And so I think the other part of the work that we do is self-compassion,
Mhm.
right? So if I do mess up, and we all will, and can we just take a pause and say, it's all right? Like,
Sure.
and so for me in that moment, it was like apologizing to the checkout person,
Right.
right? I'm
Right.
really sorry. I know this isn't your fault, like kind of
Right.
deal. And then it was funny and then that made me feel better, of course. But as I was walking out of the store, I thought, because I've been living and teaching in Northeast Pennsylvania for 13 years. And I thought to myself, oh God, I hope none of my students saw me. so so I hope, like, if there's any of your nurses are watching this, I hope they realize, like, even, the founder of a well-being company could,
Right.
you know, react. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that's our theme this month. The theme of begin again. And it's such an essential part of these practices because of course we're going to miss a day. Of
Sure.
course we're going to drop into a reactive state. Of course we're going to have a day where we just feel like everything's wrong with ourselves and the world, right?
Right.
But what we know is, just like everything else, those mind states shift, the circumstances change, the problem changes, the thoughts change, right? And we could just begin again right there and just kind of start over, whether it's an internal experience that we're grappling with or a relational
Hmm.
experience. And so I think modeling that, as I've witnessed you and Drew and Andy kind of model that, um, it's been really incredible.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I'm just recognizing that we have about 10 more minutes left in our talk. And I'm wondering if anybody from our audience has a question, either from the audience here on the Zoom webinar, or if anybody from Facebook would like to message in a question. I just wanted to kind of open it up if you're ready for that.
Sure.
Awesome. Okay, so here's a question from Sarah Jane. And Sarah Jane, of course, is one of the facilitators at Studio B. So she said, Jen, what is your go-to practice for transforming your relationship to stress in a difficult moment? Is it meditation, mindful movement, breath work, a combo?
So I really like just the pause exercises where you pause, you do the breathing, it's probably a combo, I would think. I honestly just do it, and I really just kind of go through the actions to know exactly what I'm doing. I'm not sure, I'm just doing the actions.
Mhm.
But the meditation, the breathing, I really just like to take the pause. Sometimes I like to do maybe some physical work. You know, just maybe I do some lifting, or maybe I do some stretching, or some, I don't do Zumba here because I don't need to get sweaty, but you know what I mean? Like just some movement. But I really like to just take a pause, shut my door, and just zen out.
Yeah, those quiet. There's yeah, such a power in a pause of any sort. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, there's so many practices on the platform that just offer, that spaciousness that I think is transformative.
Mhm. Yes, and I like, the classes or the exercises that talk about stress management and, you know, um, how to handle that, or just the ones where, I did one the other day and I can't think of what it was, but she talked about, you know, um, pretty much just setting those goals daily. And just because you did not hit that goal, it doesn't mean you failed. Move on to the next and continue to grow from that. So those I really do, I draw to a lot as well, just because, you know, the position I'm in, just so many different factors. But um, no job is perfect, and we have stress everywhere in life. So those help me kind of just pause.
Yeah. Yeah. That is the beauty of the practices, the simplicity and the adaptability.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions from our audience? Allison, I don't have a question, but I wanted to thank the presenter. I enjoyed the session. I'm a mother to a child who receives in-home nursing care, and I'm starting nursing school in March, which I'm very excited for. Thank you. Oh, that's awesome, Allison. Thank you.
Yes, that's very awesome.
Yeah, and good luck to you.
Mhm.
I'm glad that you named that. It's really special. And this must be from Paula. Signallamp just won a Best Places to Work award. In addition to Studio B, how else do you support your employees? And what advice would you give to other companies looking to support their teams?
Sure. So I have to laugh at this because I feel that I'm always wanting our team to laugh and have a good time. So we support them in so many different ways. We have the small group meetings every Tuesday or a Wednesday. So they engage with each other. They talk about what's going on. Our big meeting, we spin a wheel and we have prizes on this wheel. And it might be like Jen's favorite spa products, or like Signallamp health gear, or pens, or post-it notes, or gift card of your choice, whatever the case may be. So at that time, we have a little fun. We laugh. We enjoy each other's company. I'll tell them, go get your animals, go get your kids, whatever you want to do. Let's spin this wheel. So we do that. We also have, we celebrate the holidays virtually, obviously with the pandemic, but really just have that one-on-one virtually per se, outside of work hours, and just kind of get to know each other. We send birthday cards to everybody. I handwrite them out just to know, like, happy birthday, appreciate you being on the team. Thanks for all your work. We send signals, which is like a kudos, to our team, and they can send them to each other, which helps then it goes in and, employee of the month. If they have a lot of signals and some other factors are drawn in, they can get an employee of the month. So I feel that we support our staff and a lot besides, giving them this product, but or this program. But yes, I try to keep it fun and exciting, and we give things away all the time.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, I'm imagining the wheel. Is it the Wheel of Fortune? Like kind of.
Yeah, and it has and then I'll spin a name, and then I'll spin the wheel. Mm-hmm.
That's really fun. Yeah. And it's funny, we have this term, like one of the phrases that we talk about quite frequently is we create meaningful downtime for teams to connect, right? And yes, wholeheartedly believe that the content we develop creates meaningful downtime, but it also has to be playful, right? How could we connect in a way where we kind of are exposing our humanity to each other? And I think the big question mark for most people in leadership roles right now, at least, is, can that be done remotely?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You can do anything remotely, anything, it's just everything that I just explained. It's some nurses have said they've had more support remotely than they've ever had in an organization, in an inpatient setting, or just in a non-remote environment.
Right.
I don't know. And we do check on them all the time. Our nurses in the beginning, the first 90 days, I tell them they're forced to speak to me once a month because I want to check on them. I want to make sure they're doing okay. You know, any issues, any concerns. I always say too, if you're not getting along with your team leader, because the majority of our staff are women and not every woman can get, they get along with each other. It's normal. If you feel that you're butting heads, please be honest with me. I will move you. We want everyone to be successful, and our hiring process is pretty intense. So you get in the door, we picked you for a reason, and we want you to be successful here. So support, absolutely. Remote, absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. That's awesome, Jen. So one more note here from Sarah Jane, and I wasn't sure if you wanted me to name this Sarah Jane, so I didn't, but I'm glad you brought it up. So Sarah Jane said, I have the privilege of working with Jen N's team of nurses for several months, and I've noticed a big change in the energy of the room, or energy in the room, this virtual room that we're sharing, from scattered and stressed to curious and calm. That makes me very happy. And I know that Sarah Jane and the rest of the facilitators that support Signallamp, they love working with your team, just so you know. Like
my team loves them.
They've developed a lot of really important relationships with the nurses, and I'm proud of that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. To get through to a nurse like your team has, it's amazing.
Thank you.
It really is.
Yeah. Now we just need to we need to figure out a way to get these tools in front of more frontline workers, more clinicians, and yeah, I might tap on your door to ask you for some advice, because I do think it's what's helpful almost for you is the remote model. And so how do we develop a model that's just as effective in a hospital, in a hospital environment, in a busy, my mom was in the hospital in October, and I sat there witnessing the craziness and the pace and just and I thought, oh God, like how do we help these guys,
Right. And that's hard. I mean, inpatient, especially now, is hard. I remember my inpatient days, and there were times where it's 7 a.m. and next thing you know, it's 7 p.m. It's and it's so hard to take time for yourself as an inpatient nurse. But that's where it's important to take time for yourself afterwards, though. And really just do it in your car before you go home. Do it in your car before you go into the hospital. You know what you're walking into. Let's take this. Let's not react. It's going to be stressors all day. Let's just take this before we go. And then you're going to need it as soon as you walk out. Right. There's times where, I know I've cried on the way home from, working, and I know nurses now that I have friends working out there, young, that just are like, I don't know what to do. And, you have to take some time and just don't give up on it. There are so many things you can do.
Yeah. Thanks, Jen.
Of course.
I think it'll land really beautifully for any nurses out there that listen in on this conversation. And I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to add before we close up the conversation today?
No, I'm good. I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity. I was really nervous, as you know, in the beginning. I was like sweating and like, oh my gosh, where's the wine? But it was great. It was very personable, and I definitely enjoyed it. And no, there was no reason I needed to be nervous.
I told you that. Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure. And I got nervous too then for you.
I was portraying onto you virtually, remotely.
It's all right. We pulled it off, and hopefully everybody enjoyed the conversation today. Thank you all so very much for being here with us. We very much appreciate your support today. And Jen, Andy, and Drew, thank you so much for being just such an important client for Studio B.
Yes, we enjoy you, all of you.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, guys. Take care.
All right. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.